Hi, I'm Gabe from Unsolicited Designs, and welcome to my report cards for Bloomburrow. In this series, I review every mythic rare from the set and give them a letter grade based on how mythic they feel, how unique the design is, and the creative deck building opportunities they provide. In this video, I'll be studying the 5 mythic Mustelidae. That's taxonomic nomenclature for otters and weasels. Now, just as a disclaimer, these are my personal opinions as a casual Commander player. I have the utmost respect for everyone over at Wizards of the Coast for all the hard work and creativity they put into these designs. With that out of the way, I hope I earn a like and subscribe from you by the end of the video. Without further ado, on to the review. Let's start off with a splash.
Bria, Riptide Rogue. For red, blue, and 2 generic, you get a 3/3 legendary otter rogue with prowess. Bria also says, other creatures you control have prowess. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. First impression is that this card is fairly unassuming. A 3/3 prowess for 4 is not noteworthy, and granting all of your creatures that ability doesn't translate as much at a base level, perhaps because it's uncommon to see on a large scale. But a quick examination of the possibilities leads me to believe that this can have some incredibly explosive potential. Talrand and similar cards are littered throughout this color pairing. If you spend one turn generating 3 drakes, and the next turn casting another 3 non-creature spells, your 2/2s are now 5/5s, swinging for 15 damage instead of 6. Substitute a card like Shark Typhoon instead, and the numbers can get much larger. The real kicker on this card is the unblockable clause, which secretly makes Bria a Voltron commander. It's not hard to imagine a combination of red pump spells supported by blue card draw and counter magic. Even equipment and auras will trigger both prowess and the unblockable ability, opening up more options when designing your deck. I'm not a huge fan of trying to 1 or 2 shot players out of the game like that, but I'd say this is a tantalizing commander if that is your style. Personally, I'd be more interested in the token approach, or perhaps loading up on saboteur creatures and effects. That way, Bria can help you reliably get those triggers and give them more bite, since these types of creatures are typically smaller. Whatever approach speaks to you, Bria Riptide Rogue looks like she can talk the talk, and I'd say that's an easy A.
What do you get when you turn a common into a mythic?
Kitsa, Otterball Elite. For 1 blue and 1 generic, you get a 1/3 legendary otter wizard with vigilance and prowess. You can tap Kitsa to draw a card, then discard a card. And if you pay 2 generic and tap Kitsa, you can copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if Kitsa's power is 3 or greater. There's a lot going on here. Primarily, you'll want to be casting some instant and sorcery spells to take advantage of Kitsa's copying ability. The question is how you'll go about getting Kitsa's power to 3 or greater. Certainly, casting 2 non-creature spells does the job thanks to prowess, but that means you only have the option to copy an instant or sorcery if it's at least the 3rd non-creature spell you've cast that turn. And while that's a totally valid approach, I don't think I want to work that hard for my payoffs, particularly when that means investing at least 3 mana for spells and 2 more for Kitsa's copy ability. And let's be real here, if you're copying 1 or 2 mana spells, you aren't getting enough value. So, the obvious solution, particularly if you want to stay in mono blue, is to pack some power boosting equipment. There are dozens to choose from, and they guarantee you'll be ready to copy any instant or sorcery you want. Beyond all of that, you can draw and discard a card each turn to filter through your deck whenever you're lacking for spells. And vigilance is a nice touch, since you may as well get an attack in if Kitsa's power is boosted, right? The end goal with this design is fairly straightforward, but it does give you some options on how you want to get there. I feel like the overall package may be a bit gratuitous compared to its common counterparts, but that's part of being a mythic. Grade A.
I can promise you that Storm will never be printed into Standard again. Otherwise, may I be struck down by a lightning bolt.
Ral, Crackling Wit. For 1 blue, 1 red, and 2 generic, you get a legendary Ral Planeswalker with 4 starting loyalty. Ral also says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Ral Crackling Wit. For +1 loyalty, create a 1/1 blue and red otter creature token with prowess. -3 loyalty, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards. And for -10 loyalty, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with, instant and sorcery spells you cast have Storm, which means, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. It's always tempting to focus on the splashy ultimate loyalty ability, and believe me, we'll get there. But I think any walker that can add loyalty to create tokens is off to a very strong start. That's because tokens can soak up lots of damage to your life total or your walker's loyalty, maybe deter attacks entirely, and, over time, apply a lot of pressure on your opponents. Additionally, multiple tokens with prowess can put up some impressive numbers with just 2 spells. The -3 ability shouldn't be overlooked either. It may only net you 1 card since you have to discard 2, but seeing that much volume is incredibly valuable and will ensure you find the right mix of lands and spells. And the -10 ability? Wow. The emblem alone is electrifying. And you get to draw 3 cards to boot. Besides granting your instants and sorceries Storm, which is incredibly powerful, what I love most about this is it creates the potential for you to live your wildest dreams and give Storm to any number of spells that were never meant to have it. Personally, I'm a simple man who'd be content casting cruel ultimatums for the rest of my days. But if 1 Brass's bounty is explosive, imagine 3. And since you like Storm, why not give your Storm spells an additional Storm? Perhaps even more tantalizing than any of that is Ral's passive, which adds loyalty anytime you cast a non-creature spell. This is an incredibly powerful ability, as anyone who's played Inexorable Tide can attest to. In fact, I think Ral would play totally fine in a deck without any instants or sorceries. Activate his -3, cast 2 non-creature spells this turn, 1 next turn, and then you can activate the -3 again. Board presence, massive card selection, an ultimate that lets you live out your wildest spell-slinging dreams, and an incredibly effective way to stack up loyalty. It won't shock you to learn that Ral Crackling Wit is in the S tier.
Let's keep the storm effects coming.
Stormsplitter. For 1 red and 3 generic, you get a 1/4 Otter Wizard with haste. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a token that's a copy of Stormsplitter. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step. This card is fairly straightforward. Cast as many instants and sorceries as you can, and swing in with your repeatable Empty the Warrens. And while that may be enough for pure Storm combo players, what I want to see with this card is what you do with the tokens when they enter, and how you can cash them in before they leave. Of course, most effective of all might just be simply packing a bunch of instant and sorcery pump spells that affect all of your creatures. The trick is to cast your pump spell and let Stormsplitter's trigger resolve, making a copy. With your spell still on the stack, cast your next pump spell, and again, let Stormsplitter make copies. This sequencing will make it so all of your copies receive the bonuses from every spell you cast, making them far more threatening. Stormsplitter is certainly not a bad design. Indeed, it's fairly unique and has some potential for being used in creative ways. But I can't shake the feeling that's not how this card will be used a majority of the time. And it's far more efficient just to treat it as another Storm finisher. So between this being a good design and my pessimism about how it will be played, I'm going to split the difference and give Stormsplitter a B.
Do you recall the most infamous weasel of all?
The Infamous Cruelclaw. For 1 black, 1 red, and 1 generic, you get a 3/3 legendary Weasel Mercenary with Menace. Whenever the Infamous Cruelclaw deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. From time to time, Wizards likes to flirt with the idea of letting players cast things for free. Sometimes they find a lovely balance, with designs that can be quite powerful, but require a lot of careful consideration for them to pay off. And other times, the degeneracy becomes so rampant, you wonder how they missed the mark so badly. I'm probably just an average player on a good day, so I may not have the best sense of what cards are broken and which aren't. But I'd say the Infamous Cruelclaw has the hallmarks of a broken card. First, there is no cap on the mana value or spell type you can cast using Cruelclaw's ability. That means you can sling some expensive sorceries, or summon Colossal Eldrazi Titans. Second, discarding a card is, ostensibly, a drawback, and the price you pay to activate Cruelclaw's ability. But in reality, I can see this easily playing into your advantage by throwing expensive monsters into the graveyard and then hitting reanimation spells to drop them into play. And since Cruelclaw doesn't require you to discard a specific card type, turning lands from your hand into spells of any mana value is a great deal. So the 2 limiting factors here are that Cruelclaw needs to live and needs to deal combat damage to a player. The first problem is certainly a weakness, but is true of every creature without an Ender's ability. Cruelclaw suffers a little here because any protection spells you might put into your deck will reduce the success rate of flipping into your haymakers. The second issue, dealing combat damage, can be overcome in numerous ways, from removal to board wipes, all of which will be generally welcome hits off the top of your library, especially if they have some utility. And there isn't a limit to how many times you can trigger Cruelclaw per turn. So including double strike enablers and extra combat steps could be a truly savage beating. Again, I'm not the best person to say, but when you have that much potential packed into a 3-mana card, the results could be unforgettable. And that lands the Infamous Cruelclaw in the S tier.
And there you have it, my grades for the 5 Mythic Mustelidae from Bloomburrow. Were my scores fair, or do you feel otherwise? Let me know in the comments. And thanks so much for watching. I hope I earned a like and subscribe from you, and I'd love it if you'd share this video. If not, thanks for sticking with me this long anyways. You can follow me on X at UnsolicitedMTG for channel updates and other nonsense, and be sure to check back for my final part of the review series where I go over all of the cards that I couldn't come up with a clever category for. Once again, I'm Gabe from Unsolicited Designs, and who asked me anyways?